I hesitate to do this in front of Jonathan because I'm not good at it. But here I go, try to go live on Facebook. Fingers crossed. All right, I think we're there. So Mark, do you want to introduce the show?
I would be delighted to. Well, thank you everybody for showing up today to this amazing Lit Balm, which is a celebration of Marilyn Monroe, whose birthday, which birthday was it? Must have been something like 80th birthday. Would that be right?
She would have been in her 90s.
I see. I Want to Be Loved by You poems on Marilyn Monroe, in which we are featuring, hopefully other people will show up as well, David Lehman, Nin Andrews, Angela Dribben, Heidi Seaborn, Sebastian Matthews, Robert Anthony Gibbons, CAConrad, Dawad Philip, George Guida, Karen Neuberg, Anne Cefola, Joel Allegretti, Baron Wormser, Marilyn Robertson, Nick Makoha, Mervyn Taylor, and Susan Erickson, with our guest MCs Margo Stever and Susana Case. Thank you so much, guys, for coming to Lit Balm for this wonderful show. But before we commence, we will commence otherwise, as we always do. In 1998, Jonathan Penton founded Unlikely Stories, an electronic journal of literature and art. Since then, he has lent editorial and management assistance to a number of literary and artistic ventures such as Mad Hat, the New Orleans Poetry Festival, Rigorous, and Big Bridge. In 2005, he founded Unlikely Books, which publishes 3 to 5 books of poetry a year. He has organized literary performances and performed himself across the United States. His poetry books are Last Chap from Virgin Press, Blood and Salsa and Painting Rust, Prosthetic Gods from New Sins, Winged City Chapbooks, and Standards of Saturday from Litfest Press, and the free e-chapbook Backstories, which you can download from Architect eBooks.
I think that means he wants me to read a poem. Okay. Hi everybody. Thanks for humoring me. I'm going to read something that we published on unlikelystories.org over the past couple of weeks. This is called Our Gallows, and it's by Adam D.H. My lover and I meet in our respective gallows, sometimes shallow, sometimes deep, always hollowed out by the waters of remembrance. My lover and I share a pontoon in our little tragedies, a certain flick of the hand. My lover looks at me. My lover looks at me. We sit for hours like this. I say respective, to not say lonely, to not say on my end it is a little like in uncharted depths, losing footing. My lover knows not my gallows. I know not my lover's gallows. So we sit until it crystallizes, our dear mutism, good humor, both reflected in twin dark pools. Brown eyes, our unconscious collective ripples across the surface. Any hands are endlessly, finally kept to themselves at the utmost point of belonging. Here all sink in their own cradle rubble, their child-shaped alone. My gallows swamp me. His gallows strangle me. What it does to him, I can only assume. Until kingdom come, I can decipher the angles his trembling body undertakes on the sofa, the eventual pitch of his voice, all things careful, all things slow. Our gallows, I call them an exercise in mirrored solitude. In the worst that has come, and declawed, defanged, comes again. Defanged, desorrowed, it roams again our bed in silence and stops just short of touch. This score, my love, we both keep. I would call it religiously, safe that whose God ever ends where skin ends. Means skin tending skin, tending tendons, and means to do it in the dark. Our lows, after all, are 2 banks of one river, a geological depression that gave way to the bedrock. The same water has polished both our sides. The same mineral, though we call it in different tongues with different names. When the going gets tough, too tough, I want it to carry me, this river. It all makes me nauseous. Often it makes me weep. When I do, it is always for both. His bed, my bed, the beds we lost shards of ourself into. In our lovely little lows of silence, we look, dark eyes, whitened in unison, at what has become of us, not what we became. This passive past flows parallel to ourselves out of the gallows. Here we are made to see, each witness to the other's presence. I am made to look at his presence here, my presence there, and I swear on my grave this, at least, my lover of dark eyes, I will not blink. Again, that was by Adam D.H. It's up on unlikelystories.org now, and it's called Our Gallows. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Cassandra Atherton. Cassandra is an award-winning writer, scholar of prose poetry, and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia. Her most recent books of prose poetry are Pre-Raphaelite, Leftovers, and Fugitive Letters. She is currently writing a book of prose poetry on the atomic bomb with funding from the Australia Council. I've read bits of it, it's wonderful. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry and introduction, which I have yet to read, and the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She is commissioning editor for Westerly Magazine. Cassandra, will you read a poem for us today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad I remedied at least one of those books and posted it to you, Jonathan. I'm going to read a cheeky prose poem called Passion Fruit. You promised you'd kiss me with a mouthful of passion fruit pulp, pledged to plunge your tart yellow tongue between my lips on the longest day of the year. So I loiter at your kitchen bench on the summer solstice with a bowl full of bisected passion fruit, their gooey seeds glistening like tadpole spawn. You begin by sucking the flesh from the wrinkled hemispheres of passion fruit, your sticky fingers coming to rest on my bare leg, a tiny fingerprint arch of amber. I urge you closer, binding us in the xanthous moment. Sun high in the sky, smooth black seeds become stepping stones from your mouth to mine. I tug on the sharp-tasting membrane, but part of it still lies on your tongue. You hike my skirt up high on my thighs as I wind my legs around you. Warm juice spills from the corners of my lips. Passion play you breathe into me. And now I would like to introduce the amazing Mark Vincennes, who is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, a translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He has published 20 books of poetry, including more recently Einstein Fledermaus, The Little Book of Earthly Delights, A Brief Conversation with Consciousness, 39 Wonders and Other Management Issues, forthcoming from Spite and Dival. There Might Be a Moon or a Dog, forthcoming from Life Before Man Gazebo Books in Australia, and The Pearl Diver of Irunmani, forthcoming from White Pine Press. An album of music, ambience, and verse, Left Hand Clapping, is forthcoming from Tree Torn Records. Vincennes is also a prolific translator, and he's translated from, the regulars know it, German, Romanian, and French. He's published 10 books of translations, most recently Unexpected Development by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Mertz with White Pine in 2018, and which was a finalist for the 2016 Cliff Becker Book Prize in Translation. His translation of Mertz's selected poems, An Audible Blue, is forthcoming from White Pine Press. He is currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincennes is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. The bit we all love, people, it's here. He has lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural Western Massachusetts overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, and where there are more, this is going to test me on a Sunday morning, people, Streptomyces, Xanthomonas, and Pseudomonas than people. Now, I don't know, there's a story behind that one, Mark. Did you say soil bacteria?
That is correct. Well, you know, we never think about soil bacteria, do we?
Not as much as I would have liked to know about soil bacteria.
But apparently, Xanthomonas and Pseudomonas are very helpful to the roots of plants, and they help ward off, attacks. This one's called Pandering to the Audience for Marilyn. The crow pecks wildly, He's scarred by last night's tar and feather. Apparently so, says the raccoon. In crow culture, the rites of adulthood are cast early. Only the old-fashioned believe such stories, the crow mutters to the shrike, handing him a furry caterpillar quite casually. Everything is in a title, says the snail passing by at his eager pace. Don't you see he pecks wildly, says the June bug. An alligator raises her head over the water's surface, her eyes emerald green with envy. Everything in a day's work, she bubbles. Who is the Buddha of the birds, the crow asks the fungi. Why, the chanterelle, they sing in unison. Yes, they're mighty fine tasters, says the crow. Meanwhile, the raccoon edges in with a mole in his mouth hanging there like yesteryear's laundry. Dead, someone says. I think it's a flat-footed mouse who taps the crow on the beak and says, the Buddha of the birds is the heron. Loner he is, poser he may be, and yet he has that gait, even when his feathers are ruffled, not too eager across the pond, strident, yet haltingly aloof, as if all the knowledge in the water has seeped into his toes. Two worms appear from nowhere, one longer than the other. The long one says, in every dictum is a promise. The short one smiles, turns a blind eye, then finds the most malicious earth and burrows. What a poser, says the long one. And now I'm delighted to introduce my friends here. And I think I'm going to, hand it over to Margo and Susana. You guys both unmuted?
Yes. Thanks to Cassandra Atherton and Mark Vincennes, the only poets I know from Australia, for organizing the Lit Balm readings. When Susana and I both read from our then new books, Dead Shark on the N Train and Cracked Piano, respectively, at a Lit Balm reading in December 2020, Susana came up with the idea for I Want to Be Loved by You after we both read poems that mentioned or featured Monroe. Thank you, Lit Balm curators, for providing the space for the birth of this anthology. Also, thanks to Susana for being such a phenomenal co-editor. We wanted to thank all the poets for reading today. As Susana mentioned, we found out this morning that I Want to Be Loved by You was a finalist in the Poetry Anthology category for the 2022 International Book Awards. The Monroe Anthology was also the sole winner of a Pinnacle Achievement Book Award in the Anthology category this year. Each poet in the anthology shares equally for the glory of these two achievements. I should also mention that this year, Mother Kingdom, a powerful chapbook by Andrea Deacon, published by Slappering Hall Press and edited by Susana Mervyn Taylor, who's here and reading today, and me, was a finalist in the Poetry Chapbook category for the International Book Awards. Thanks also to all the people who are devoting this beautiful spring day or night, but I think mostly day, as the case may be, to this poetry spectacular. I will begin by reading a poem by Marilyn Monroe, first published in Fragments, Farrar, Straus and Giroux in 2010. And by the way, this is, in case someone doesn't have this anthology, this is what it looks like. And it's published by Milk and Cake Press. This is Marilyn Monroe's contribution to the anthology, aside from, of course, inspiring it by her amazing life. I left my home of green, rough wood, a blue velvet couch I dream till now, a shiny dark bush just left of the door. Down the wall, clickety-clack as my doll in her carriage went over the crack. We'll go far away. The meadows are huge, the earth will be hard on my back. The grass touched the blue and still white clouds, changing from an old man's shapes to a smiling dog with ears flying. Look, the meadows are reaching, they're touching the sky. We left our outlines against the crushed grass. It will die sooner because we were there. Will something else have grown? Don't cry, my doll, don't cry. I hold you and rock you to sleep. Hush, hush, I was only pretending now. I'm not your mother who died. I shall feed you from the shiny dark bush just left of the door. And now Susana will talk and read.
Thank you, Margo, and you two were a phenomenal co-editor on this. It was a really good project. I think of myself as someone who has difficulty working with other people, but this was easy and it was fun. So I'm going to start off with the Sharon Olds poem in our anthology, Death of Marilyn Monroe. Her death inspired a number of poems, and so one section of the anthology is all about her death. So this is Death of Marilyn Monroe, Sharon Olds. The ambulance men touched her cold body, lifted it heavy as iron onto the stretcher, tried to close the mouth, closed the eyes, tied the arms to the sides, moved a caught strand of hair as if it mattered, saw the shape of her breasts flattened by gravity under the sheet, carried her as if it were she down the stairs. These men were never the same. They went out afterwards, as they always did, for a drink or two, but they could not meet each other's eyes. Their lives took a turn. One had nightmares, strange pains, impotence, depression. One did not like his work. His wife looked different, his kids. Even death seemed different to him, a place where she would be waiting. And one found himself standing at night in the doorway to a room of sleep, listening to a woman breathing. Just an ordinary woman breathing. So now we're going to hear from our contributors, and what I'm going to do is put two names at a time in the chat so you know who's up next, and then you can just unmute yourself. And I also encourage you to use the chat if you want to tell anybody about your latest book or anything else. But we'll start off with Heidi Seaborn and then Sebastian Matthews. So look in the chat for your turn after that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lit Balm, and thank you, Susana and Margo. Delighted to be here. And I'm very happy to be reading my poem, my contribution from this wonderful anthology. And it also happens to be a poem from my latest collection, which is called An Insomniac Slumber Party with Marilyn Monroe, which came out a year ago from Pank Books. And this hasn't been announced yet, but I might as well let people know that Pank is putting out a collector's edition, which will be a much more expanded edition later this summer. So I'll put my website in there and then people can find out about that later. So this is 4 Days at Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic, 1961. And it's based on lines that it was inspired by lines, and there are certain lines in it that came directly from a letter that Marilyn wrote to her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson, after being committed by another psychiatrist, Dr. Chris. So she was institutionalized for 4 days. I scrape my body off the scrawled walls, pinwheel on a stone bed, carve my lines into the steel desk. Very, very sick girl. Hold that thought. Phone gone, I call no one. Call Joe for old time's sake. Very, very dark place. Hold that thought. Each act an act, a line spoken, a rule broken, a small token from last year's movie. Sometimes I wonder what the nighttime is for. Cut, a girl said. She said she cut. I called cut, the scene cut into lines across the window. Cut me in lines open that window. Men are climbing to the moon, but they don't seem interested in the beating heart. Hold that thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. My name is Sebastian Matthews. I'm going to read a poem called "The Night Ella Escorted Marilyn Through the Front Door of the Macombo." You heard it wrong. It was Ella ensconced in the front row all week, not Marilyn. And Ella who was joined not by Sinatra and Garland, but by Robeson and Horn. And Ella who had her white friends back, allying for a woman not deemed attractive enough to perform. And it wasn't LA, but Kansas City or Detroit. And here comes the inimitable Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith, and a young Alberto Hunter, drinks all around the foretop. And Marilyn never stopped being Norma Jean and wasn't strumming that damn ukulele or fake whispering. Hair in a brown bob, shirt and collar, stomping boots, but belting out a country blues of her ghosted past. While we're at it, whites only signs never existed, and King's beloved community was baked into the Constitution, and John Lewis never had to walk onto that bridge. The billy clubs flying in sped up reverse back into their holsters, cops morphing into regular people like us, all sizes and hues and proclivities, heading out to a field full of banquet tables piled high with steaming food, kegs cooling under trees whose limbs have never been asked to bear black bodies, and a band playing some down-home dirty blues, and everyone up dancing and shouting. Now, wouldn't that be something?
Hello, everyone. I believe I'm unmuted. Thank you, Lit Balm. Thank you, Margo, and thank you, Susana, for including the poem. I guess just a quick word. I do have a book called Zen of Pop, which is my latest book. Unfortunately, it does not have a Marilyn poem in it, and my Marilyn poem is set in New York. My other book from 2020 is called New York and Other Lovers. Also does not have a Marilyn poem. So I'm glad it's in this anthology, and thank you again, everyone. My poem's called I Don't Want Marilyn. I don't want Marilyn. I love a pinup and a golden age as much as the next red-blooded boy, but I don't want Marilyn. Her afterlife and avatars pouting through imagined lips. No matter how my wife insists she could have aged into character, directed, had a sitcom, self-help show. Where is she today? Reality stint in pantsuits, in shoulder pads, llama's wool caps and low-cut t-shirts inspired generations of women to outlive the men who wore them. To me, she is white chiffon, a cloud of a decade I accepted on parents' faith. She is America in soft focus, more the breeze up a skirt than the woman wearing it, more the dresser who made her than the morning that woke us from city bed and sleep to Broadway, spilling out in sweatpants, searching for bagels and coffee, figuring Sunday, a classic movie, a family plan, a park bench, the bill of her cap resting on my shoulder, Texas whispers like secrets of her unmade face. I don't want Marilyn, but another woman in her image comes back to me now and then to play a scene I've written but never produced. She is standing alone on a bare stage, reading lines we can't commit to memory. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Lit Balm and to Susana and Margo for including my poem in the anthology. And so far, this has been great. Everything has been just beautiful. I do want to mention that my latest book is called Pursuit. It did come out at the end of 2019, and it's kind of been stopped a little bit by COVID because I haven't gotten out there too much, but it is from Kelsey Press. And this is my poem. It's called Moxie. After achieving sex icon status as the girl in the 7-Year Itch, Marilyn Monroe set out on a 2-year quest. Frustrated with studio constraints, tired and depressed by grade B scripts and bimbo blonde roles, Marilyn defied report to work orders, donned a black wig and dark glasses, and under the pseudonym Zelda Zane, flew to New York. Then something no other woman star except Mary Pickford had done. With a friend's financial backing, Marilyn started her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Studio, an action now called instrumental in the collapse of the restrictive studio system. Ignoring threats, insults, and lawsuits, Marilyn spent the next few years attending Broadway plays, visiting museums, going to poetry readings, joining the Actors Studio, and reading extensively, seeking strong women characters to play. Arthur Miller courted her. Director Josh Logan wanted her for Bus Stop, and her studio surrendered. Marilyn got all her demands, including creative control. The victory was proclaimed one of the greatest single triumphs ever won by an actress.
Hey, thank you, Karen. Wow. Thank you, Margo and Susana. I want to say you're the hardest working anthology editors on the planet, but Joel Allegretti's in the room, so I don't know if I can say that. All three of you deserve that title. This poem is based on an inn in Connecticut where Monroe used to stay when she visited Miller. It's called Clawfoot Tub, Room 22 Confesses. Homestead Inn, New Milford, Connecticut, where Monroe stayed on visits to Miller. Yes, I knew her. On my white porcelain lip, those hot coral nails, immaculate. Veuve Clicquot uncorked, erupting over walls. Oh, sorry, tile. Cat eye drawn, mirror precise, and below the counter's lineup of lip staining. Ruby Tuesday, Revlon. Diabolique, Guerlain. Platinum pearls lost like globes amid iridescent bubbles in my embrace. Beside my claw feet, hand towels so she could keep Joyce's Ulysses safe. Untold guests later, crooning, who cares, raucous, loud, she's back. I pour another steamy retreat. She slides in, overflow from eyes, glides off cheek, plink, plink. Love, I insist, it isn't the only thing that matters. In wee hours, quiet turn of key, tumbler, pin, my weepy confidant never seen again. Time swirls down drain in buoyant refills when lanky, bespectacled, tan, he enters in. Smokes on edge of toilet seat, squints to recall scent at blanched nape. Chanel number 5, I radiate. Tamps out his Dunhill and sink, orange ember burns. Souls poorly soldered, but cast iron. I alone held her and asked nothing in return. Thank you.
Hello all. Thank you to Margo and Susana for including me in the anthology, and thank you to the curators of Lit Hub for this reading. My poem is on page 25, for those of you who are reading along. Amateur night at Giselle's attic. Bete Noire does Marilyn Monroe. Bete is spelled B-E-T-T-E. The patrons fill 16 out of 60 seats. I'm following Lady Bayleaf doing Liza as Sally Bowles. And when I lip sync My Heart Belongs to Daddy after a daiquiri or 3, I picture a sugar daddy of my very own, waiting for me in the lounge of a 4-star hotel in this brassy city. And okay, maybe I look more like Baby Jane than Norma Jean, but until the wig is back in the box and the satin dress is in the closet for the night, I can forget I'm old enough to be that daddy's daddy.
think I'm next. Can you hear me? Okay. This one is called Some Like It Hot. It turns out that I was a little girl when they filmed Some Like It Hot in Coronado, not Florida, as the film said it was. So that's why I got to watch Some Like It Hot. Action, shouted Billy Wilder, and you ran in heels in that red dress down the back steps of the Hotel Del along the paved path to the beach, in that shimmering dress with a tiny heart cut out in the rear, revealing skin. Over 20 takes, each one the same to me. Later, we circled you like hungry fish, you fragile, wrapped in thick white terry cloth, not like that oversized celluloid tease, but translucent, like light through a negative. Everyone mesmerized. Even today, eager for every last scrap. So many takes, so much taken. There were no paparazzi back then, only townsfolk with shiny eyes and pens poised. I didn't know anyone else named Marilyn except you and my pretty blonde aunt. I was 10. My skin was bronzed, gritty from riding a bucking rubber mat in green sea foam. Dark curls crested above a chest, flat as sand. No one has ever asked for my autograph. Rarely do I meet another Marilyn. When I do, we nod, because we know there's only one.
Congratulations, Susana and Margo, on the book and on the prizes that are just beginning to come in. Another Marilyn. My niece, Marilyn Monroe, was darker than the screen star, but talked with the same breathy ooh, eyes half-lidded, lashes long. I met her in the early years of her grown-up life when she introduced herself as family, and I heard my father's grunt as a female sound, more of a sigh. It made me wonder, was her mother the baby brought one night in pouring rain? My dad's response, a few dollars, crumpled and flung over the gate. The night we met, I said a silent apology on his behalf for all the Marilyns who fended even before they learned to flutter their eyelids for themselves, for mothers and grandmothers whom men keep waiting even in pouring rain. Thank you.
I'm Susan J. Erickson.
No, yeah, that's better. Stay like that.
I'm Susan J. Erickson, and I live in Bellingham, Washington, which is known as the city of subdued excitement. And my poem appears on page 56 of the anthology, if you want to follow along. And it's titled, What Marilyn Monroe Tells Her Dressmaker While Fitting Her Mr. President Gown. I want it to fit me like the skin of a peach, the scales of a fish, the glove of a surgeon, like whiskey in a silver flask, the pop of flash bulbs, or smoke on a magician's mirror, like fog hugging San Francisco Bay. It should fit me like the new skin of a snake. Does a snake wear underwear? Neither do I. I want this dress slinky as a Freudian slip. I want every curve in the road of my body to signal danger. I don't care if I have to pant to sing happy birthday, Mr. President. I want Joe DiMaggio to pant. I want Arthur Miller's tongue to hang out. Ditto Arthur Schlesinger. Pull those stitches a bit tighter. I want every man in Madison Square Garden breathless. Thanks.
That was wonderful. I'm Ann Harding Woodworth, and thank you, Susanna and Margo, for this wonderful anthology. And Lit Balm, thank you too. My poem is on page 23 for those of you who are following along, and it's called Marilyn Monroe in a Potato Sack, 1952. It seems that a critic said that she was dressed very tackily and that she'd be better served if she were wearing a potato sack. So the studio, 20th Century Fox, decided to capitalize on that comment. Marilyn Monroe in a Potato Sack, 1952. It must have felt rough, that burlap, like a hair shirt, scratchy, punishing, though I doubt she thought of sin or human frailty. But the potato sack, it must have scraped her front and back, left her bosoms, spine, and buttocks welted, bloody red, as if she'd used a cat-o'-nine-tails on herself at the convent late at night when all the other sisters slept, or maybe snuck a look at the good book, or maybe at the bad magazine, or maybe both alternately, and alternately asking Father for forgiveness and stopping at a photo of Marilyn in a potato sack, struck with how good she did look, to the point they thought about her all the next day, especially in the pantry when they reached their hands into the burlap bag and pulled out some dirty, brown, dusty Idahos and began to peel them skinless right down to their smooth, slippery innards. Thanks.
Thank you, Margo and Susana, for putting this amazing book together. My name is.
Can you get a little bit closer to the mic, Indran?
I'm okay. Thank you, Margo and Susana, for putting this wonderful book together.
Sorry, we still can't hear you.
I'm doing my best. Hello, can you hear me now?
Just a tiny bit.
Well, I can't do any better, I'm afraid. I'm going to have to recite from now. Okay.
All right.
I was just saying thank you to Susana and to Margo for this wonderful book. And my name, as you know, Indran Amithanagam. My latest book, by the way, is this one, 10,000 Steps Against the Tyrant. And I'll read the poem in the anthology. Sorry about the sound issues. Across the Line. The woman slouched off the sheets, beatific, voluptuous, full of desire, a dream in absolute, resolute death. I have wanted to sing your name ever since I read Ernesto Cardenal's ode, ever since I rolled off the seat laughing at the 7-year itch. Some like it hot. Yes, I agree, and your birthday song to the president on national TV makes later transgressions almost quaint. But you chose to hide in public until you were killed. A suicide, theater of the absurd. That last film in Texas with Gable and Clift, all of you to die within a year of the making. I believe you were yanked from stage by an assassin, Marilyn, but who? Us? The mobster Giancana sent? In any case, you're killing, the first of the 60s horrors, before Malcolm, Martin, John, Bobby, goodbye, Yellow Brick, Norma Jean, your birth names, and only 36 years old when you left us for the unknown, wondering about your part in the dream. Yes, the dream of the greater union. Is it possible to dream, Marilyn, now that you are an angel on the other side? Is it okay to cross the dividing line? Thank you. I hope you were able to hear at least some of it. Okay. Okay, good.
And so, Susana, do we have more readers or?
I think that is everyone. Is there anyone that I didn't notice come in? Okay, so we're gonna, and Margo and I are going to read a couple of other poems from the anthology's contributors, and Margo will start.
Susana, could we have that one person who wanted to read a Marilyn poem? Who I forget who it was. But...
Yeah, I thought after in the open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm reading a poem by Edwin Morgan, one of the great poets of Scotland who died in 2010. The Death of Marilyn Monroe. What innocence, whose guilt, what eyes, whose breast? Crumbled orphan, Nembutal bed, White Hearse, Los Angeles, DiMaggio, Los Angeles, Miller, Los Angeles, America. That death should seem the only protector, that all arms should have faded and great cameras and lights become an inquisition and a torment. That the many acquaintances, the autograph hunters, the inflexible directors, the drive-in admirers should become a blur of incomprehension and pain. That lonely uncertainty should limp up grinning with bewildering barbiturates and watch her undress and lie down in her anguish. Call for him to strengthen her with what could only dissolve her, a method of dying. We are shaken, we see it, Strasbourg, Los Angeles, Olivier, Los Angeles, others die. And yet by this death, we are a little shaken, we feel it, America. Let no one say communication is a cant word. They had to lift her hand from the bedside telephone. But what she had not been able to say, perhaps she had said, all I had was my life. I have no regrets because if I made any mistakes, I was responsible. There is now and there is the future. What has happened is behind, so it follows you around. So what? This to a friend 10 days before. And so she was responsible. And if she was not responsible, not wholly responsible, Los Angeles, will it follow you around? Will the slow white hearse of the child of America follow you around?
So thank you, Lit Balm. Thank you, Cassandra and Jonathan and Mark and John Wessick. I think you have some role in this too as tech person, perhaps. So thank you too. I'm going to read a poem by Alessandro Fo, which was originally written in Italian and was translated, about Kay Kent. Kay Kent is the title of the poem. She was one of the more, perhaps the most famous of the Marilyn Monroe impersonators. And she was very successful in doing this in the UK, to the point where she imitated Marilyn Monroe's suicide and set the scene exactly the same way. So this is Kay Kent. And then they ask me, what does she wear at night? Pajamas? Only a part? I replied, 2 drops of Chanel No. 5. I don't want to say nude, though it is the truth. They are words I have never forgotten. Nothing of her have I ever forgotten. I lived as if I were her. Not a look-alike, rather a twin. And you know how twins have mysterious histories. The same smile, the same movements, the same voice, they said. Also, the bosom now identical to hers after the surgeon. They covered me with gold so that I was Marilyn here, Marilyn there, in the photos with skirt in the wind, or nude or sexy glance, as her platinumed, obviously, even if I were a brunette, she was that too. Though the gold wasn't enough. I was her and also not her. No gossip about my loves, little interest in an imposter. I shared her unhappiness. I chose to die like her, but I resisted 12 years less alcohol, and barbiturates, even if in my case, I left no doubt. Dear Dean, I love you so much. I wanted to enter into mystery like that, not wanting to say nude, with our Chanel number 5 resting on the breast. So I noticed in the comments that Sebastian had requested that we read Darian Lau's poem, Lauch's poem. And I wondered, I wanted to invite him to read Darian Lauch's poem, if he would, and then we will have time for that and Ron Brenner to read, right? Okay, so why don't we do that? We'll have Sebastian read Darian Lauch's poem, and then Ron Brenner will read his Marilyn poem.
I hope I don't butcher it. I really have to say I've really loved reading this anthology. I've read it really kind of piecemeal over time, knowing that eventually I'll get to it all. But very impressed and very happy to hear these poems out loud tonight. Another year on Earth. Another butt in the ashtray, another ordinary night, but this time I unbolt the door and walk. Let me start again, page 49 if you have the book. Another year on Earth. Another butt in the ashtray, another ordinary night, but this time I unbolt the door and walk out under the moon's breast, full and milky, her light chiseling the new crop of sunflowers, their crisp yellow collars turned earthward, their seedy eyes closed while the bees sleep. I lean against a tree, fix my eyes on one bright star, maybe Venus, goddess of love and beauty, one of her days longer than a year. She's aging so gracefully, 4,503 billion years old, and she doesn't even look a day over neon. Maybe it's because she has no moons to tie her down like Jupiter and Saturn, who look haggard and careworn. Jupiter with her deep stretch marks and crow's feet, Saturn surrounded by the wreckage of her life. But Venus floats alone in her tabernacle of space, watching TV while she lifts weights like a pro on her living room floor, her red beauty mark enhancing her still kissable lips. Once somebody said, "I dare you," and I did, jumped off the bluff into deep sea water. I was a teenager, dumb as they come, and when an eddy pulled me under and spit me up against the rocks, I was sure I had completed my last spectacular act on Earth. But the boys dove in and hauled me out so I could get as old as I am now, almost 70, staring up at Venus in my backyard, wearing nothing but a thin nightgown, the warm summer air lifting it up like Marilyn Monroe's skirt, revealing my pocked and lunar thighs.
I just want, that's wonderful poem, and I just wanted to mention that it is also in the latest Slapping Hole Press Conversations chapbook, along with other poems of hers. So you might want to check that out. Okay, Ron?
Surprise. Although I do have a new book to push, I'll do that next week because that's not about Marilyn. Blonde, blonde, blonde. Babe, babe, babe. Figure, bottom, legs. Wow, wow, wow. Chick, woman, lady. A mind to be reckoned with. And didn't they find out? Actress. Yeah, great actress. You better believe it. Explosive presence. Implosive absence. Goodbye, my lady true. We're gonna miss you. That's it.
Thank you, Ron. Now, Cassandra or Jonathan, do we have further people for the open mic?
We do. We have 4 people. We have unofficial Lit Balm member John Wessick, We have Rodney, Cindy, and Bob. So I would like to ask John to kick us off. You never know what John's going to do. He threw in a pretty powerful one last week that was not surreal. So he's multi-talented. John, what have you got for us this week?
Well, Cassandra, there is some kind of law that every poet has to write about groups of animals, a murder of crows, a crash of rhinos, the tower of giraffes. And so here is my attempt. It's called A Genocide of Passenger Pigeons. A vandalism of oak trees, an arson of bark beetles, a larceny of locusts, a holocaust of buffalo, a trespass of fire ants, an assault of killer bees, a shoplift of scallops, burglary of tuna, a forgery of flounder, counterfeit of sole, identity theft of sea bass, and extortion of Ebola. A conspiracy of vultures, a campaign of tapeworms, political action committee of ticks, a sedition of bullfrogs, perjury of cicadas, a congress of skunks, a corruption of eagles.
I love it. Absolutely. It reminds me of the one that I love called Animal Crackers, but I think my favorite there was a shoplift of scallops. But I think we say scallops and you say scallops, but it's tomato. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Thank you. Rodney A. Brown, we have you up next. If you can unmute yourself and take the floor.
Hello?
I can hear you a little bit in the background.
Are you there?
I am.
Okay.
Can you speak up just a teeny bit?
All right. I'm going to read number 46 from a series of poems. Gate frames a horse riding on, moving still. It happens in the morning. She found her mother sitting at a window, watching a funeral. It was raining heavy so that some of the mourners even wore Macintosh coats. This funeral was where another new grave was covered with wreaths of sodden, shriveling flowers. This is to say the poorer corner of the churchyard. The yellowish coffin stood in the rain on the wet earth. The curate held their hat in the manner of a permanent salute above their head, listening under it like a little umbrella hassling on with the service. The people too wet to weep, more wet. I imagine the conversation in front of the long coffin. Mother, do you like watching? Was asked. I do, I really do. I'll tell you why. I'm imagining I'm in that coffin. Those are my relatives, and they are putting me away, and I shall like to know before I go buried in a box to know where I am. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was really powerful. They are putting me away. Yeah. Thank you for contributing. I really appreciate it. And I liked the visual there. I think it was kind of like a Ouija board. Thank you.
Probably I Ching, I would say.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, either way, it was pretty cool. Next we have Cindy. You can't have a lip balm without Cindy reading for us. Everybody loves Cindy. No pressure, Cindy.
And I love you, Cassandra. And this was a great reading. Congrats to Susana and Margo for putting the anthology together. I'm going to buy a copy tonight. I don't have a Marilyn Monroe poem, but I think this sort of relates in a way. It's the title poem of my new book that's coming out eventually. It's called, which Cassandra was nice enough to blurb. It's called Telling You Everything. And it starts with an epigraph by Charles Simic. Be brief and tell us everything. So that's what I tried to do. I am all moan and bone and dangling participles. I am all pipes and drums, but no voice box. My body is hamstrung and jagged. I am a bellyful of barren. These days, I have become nothing but chocolate bars and razor blades. That's it.
Wow, that was powerful. Chocolate bars and razor blades. Fantastic. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it was an honor to blurb your book. I think you're amazing. And I've saved Bob up for last because I have said before, I do like to kind of on my Sundays take Bob's amazing poems, kind of philosophical, kind of playful, kind of words of wisdom with me for the rest of the day. And so Bob is going to beam in from his kitchen and give us what I believe is quite a brief poem today, Bob. I think he is. Bob, I think you're muted still. We can't hear your dulcet tone.
Sorry about that. So my brief introduction will remain unlistened to. Sleep. When she sleeps on the train, she's even more blonde.
That's awesome. Thank you. That was that's a connection there, right there at the very end of Lit Balm. So Mark, back to you to close the show. It's been amazing. Loved it.
It has been. And I do want to be loved by you too, to all of you. But thank you so much, Margo and Susana, for making this happen. Thank you to everybody who participated, and the rest of you who didn't show up, well, you will be spanked later. Next week, we have Martin Figuera, George Sitches, Claire Shaw, and Jessica Mukherjee with guest MC Helen Ivory, all poets from the UK. Please do join us that day. And the week after, we have Joseph Leese, Megan Bryceth, Todd Edgerton, and Sheila E. Murphy. And now, to close up this wonderful Marilyn show, here's a little poem that I wrote called Co-Star for Marilyn. More light, please, more light. I wake up with a splitting headache. I need to be bathed in in the bones warmth. What was the word we needed to get over the body? That wasn't that time in Tuscany, was it? The whirring of the crickets, the names and the amens, the great benevolence. From whom did she get the starring role? From whence, you mean, dear, don't you? The great adolescence raising the Tower of Babel. May we lay ours down for those who fail to return. What pandemonium? You must go, you said. That one is as precise as crystal. Here, a souvenir. Now you have them both. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful evening, the celebration of Marilyn, and thank you, Susana and Margo, for making this all happen. We'll see you hopefully next Saturday with our Brits and Love and Poetry. Good night, everybody.
Wait, could I say one quick thing? Someone just
sure.
asked if Susan's name was Susan Jarrett, and no, it's Susan J. Erickson. Susan J. Erickson. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you so much. And love and poetry to you all. Good night.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.